Welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, I would like to talk more about what CORS means. In the previous lesson, we had a problem where when we did fetch, it would not fetch the resource from our backend server due to some policy, due to something called CORS. CORS means cross-origin resource sharing. Now, the problem that we had to do with some HTTP header called access-control-allow-origin. Now, what do they all really mean? In the previous lesson, I taught you how to get around the problem by installing a third-party npm package called CORS. Then we use that package as a middleware to our server. A middleware is something that stays in between. When the client requests something, your server is listening and takes that and directs that request to the appropriate route handler. Now, in between that, we can put a middleware, so every time a client requests for something on the server, it will pass first through the middleware, and only after having passed through the middleware will it end up in the route handler. Now, let's dive into what CORS really means. Let's reproduce the error again. Okay, so this lesson will be dedicated into going into more details about this problem. So let's go here. Back to server.js, we have the endpoint /entries, right? Now we have this app.useCORS. We're using the CORS middleware. I am going to comment this out, meaning it will no longer be executed, right? A // preceding at the beginning, // everything after the / the double slash will be commented out. That is, the code will not be seen will not be run. Okay. With that, we'll have the problem again. So let's reproduce it. Let me run the server because I had it shut down. I'm going to say node space server.js. Now server is listening on port 3000. Let's go back to our application in the browser. So here I'm going to refresh. And before I do that, I want to click the network tab of the browser developer tools. Now you can filter these by XHR, JS, CSS, and so on. And you can see all is marked right now. That means all the requests appear here in this convenient table. We're interested in the request of type fetch. That's fetching the entries, right? If you hover over the row whose name is entries, you're going to see it's a request to localhost on the port 3000/entries, and the status the last time I run this was 200 OK. Now if you wanna, I just want to teach you about these filters. What we do with fetch is what's called XHR request. Okay, it's a XML HTTP request. That's what that means. So that's what we want. Every time you use fetch to grab something from the server, you're going to be making an XHR call, XML HTTP request. Okay, so I'm going to filter right that, and you're going to see XHR and fetch. It's the only one that appears. I'm going to click on that, and I can see the headers response for the response, and I can see the headers from the request. Now I can see the preview. Under the preview tab is the response. We already know that. Great. Now I'm going to refresh and watch the request there. Now the request turned red. Now if you can see here, the color changed to red because there was a problem. You can see the status column now says fail. Let's click the row and then let's see, there's nothing here that tells us what went wrong. But how about we go back here to the console tab and you can see that error again, right? We had that before. Now let's dive deeper into this. What does this really mean? Let's read it again. So access to fetch at http://localhost:3000, that's the port, /enter is the endpoint, right? From origin null. Now notice no origin is null. So it's telling us that the origin from this request is null. And that just means that I'm running it from my local file system. That's the origin. Now this request has been blocked by a CORS policy. CORS, C-O-R-S, right? Cross origin resource sharing. Notice cross origin. We're going to remember that for later on. Cross origin, okay? No access control allow origin. Access dash control dash allow dash origin. Header, okay? It's an HTTP header. Is present on the requested resource. So it's telling us that this specific header was not present, okay? So the server, right, received we're the client, we asked for the entries, the server sent back something, but the header was not set. Now, if an opaque response serves your needs, set the request mode to no CORS. To fetch the resource with CORS disabled. So it's telling us we can get around it by setting no CORS, so we will not use that policy. But we're not going to go that route. So that's why it failed. Now, if you go back to the network tab and you click the entries row, check out the headers tab. And you can see here, you have request headers, you have response headers, etc. Now, if we go back to the text editor and add back, uncomment the line with app.use, CORS, and restart the server. Let me kill Control-C, and then I'm gonna rerun node server.js. Let's see, it's gonna succeed now, right? Let's keep in mind what you see under response headers or request headers. Now click the entries again, and you can see for the response headers, okay, response headers, those are the headers sent by the server, right? Because you have the request and you have the response. The client makes the request to the server. The server in turn sends a response, and that response also includes headers. They are HTTP headers, right? Now look at that. There is a header here, entry called access-control-allow-origin, and its value is star. Now this header from the response was set by the middleware CORS, right? The third-party NPM module. And its value is star. Star means, you can think of star as everything, meaning allow any origin. Okay? Nice. Now we got that, but now let's dive into a little bit of theory, like what is CORS? Now that we saw some things here in practice, let's dive into more of an overview. So I'm going to go to my browser and I'm going to go to the MDN website, developer.mozilla.org. Now we're going to do a search here. Click the search bar. Let's type cross origin resource sharing. And I have the first entry. This is the page I want to read. So let's read this. Cross-origin resource sharing. Cross-origin resource sharing is a mechanism that uses additional HTTP headers to tell browsers to give a web application running at one origin access to selected resources from a different origin. Now you can see here different origin. That's key. So the cross-origin means different origin. So you're gonna have, for example, you have the client. He's in some location A. The client makes a request to some location B. Now, because the request that was made is from a client that is somewhere else, right? The server is in a different place. So we have a cross origin. It's not the same origin. It's a cross origin, different origin. Because of that, because of the CORS policy, the header that was not present, it will not allow this, because by default it only allows same origin. We're going to read it right now. So let's read it here, continue reading here. Web application executes cross-origin HTTP request when it requests a resource that has a different origin, domain, protocol, or port from its own. An example of a cross-origin request: the front-end JavaScript code, that's our Write Something app, served from https://domain.a.com uses XML HTTP request. This is XHR. That's exactly what we did with fetch, right? To make a request for https://domain.b.com/data.json. So domain B in this case would be our server, right? Well, keep in mind, even though they're in the same kind of computer, my local computer, they actually have different domains, because I'm running the write something in a local file here in the browser, and the server is being run on port 3000, and the domain there would be the local host, while the domain for this app here running directly through the browser with the file system page would be actually a null domain, as evidenced from the error we got here in the console. Remember, we had the error null for the origin. Anyway, let's continue. So for security reasons, third paragraph, browsers restrict cross-origin HTTP requests initiated from scripts. So it's restricted cross-origin. For example, XML HTTP request and the fetch API follow the same origin policy. This is key. That's why our fetch did not work, because it follows by default the same origin policy, meaning if you request something, that something must come from the same origin. If it does not come from the same origin, I'm not going to allow it. You're not going to be allowed to fulfill that request successfully. This means the web application using those APIs can only request resources from the same origin the application is loaded from, unless the response from other origins includes the right CORS headers. Now, this is telling us we need to set the right CORS headers, and that would be in our case, would be that header that we saw in the error description. If I open my text editor, that will be the access control allow origin header. That's what we want to set, right? Remember, it was set to star, meaning any origin is allowed. Here's a nice diagram. You can take a look at this. You have the domain A requests something from the same origin, domain.a.com, domain.a.com. That's fine, same origin policy. Now, if you have something else in your web page that requests from another server, right, another place that's domain B, that's not the same origin, then then it will not be allowed by default due to same origin policy. So we need to find a way to allow this to happen, and the way is through adding that header, right? The CORS header, to tell it, okay, it's fine, you can make the request, and the origin can be whatever origin you specify, or in this very general case that we're doing, it could be any origin. Mind you that usually you want to set very specific origins for your resource fetch, right, operations, because you don't want to allow just about anyone, right? Usually you want to constrain all your client can only make a request to some servers, different servers, and all these different servers are known to you. So you take those origins and you make up a list of allowed origins, right? And that's what you usually put in the header that we're going to change. But since we're doing just for educational purposes here, I'm just going to use star to mean any header, okay? Star to any header. You can read on here if you want to know more about CORS. I highly recommend MD and Web Docs if you want to know more about it. Let's click same origin policy and follow up with something more interesting here. And you can read more about this one. All kinds of stuff. I'm interested in the header actually. Is this the page that I want to know? Maybe I was on the wrong page. I'm going to go back. I am interested in the header that I saw something interesting before here. Let me see if I can find it. CORS origin API. Let's go back same origin. Sorry. I wanted to see something here. See if they had the headers. Anyway, I didn't find anything here, but you can read through if you want to know more about this. In any case, we got a overview of CORS, and now let's do more practice. What I want to know is kind of, let us make a middleware like the CORS middleware to set the header so everything works fine. And this is, in a way, replicating the behavior, the most essential behavior of that CORS npm package. Although I would say it's not really everything, it's just one small thing we're going to do. So let's go back to the text editor. Go to server.js. Now let's comment out app.useCORS again. I'm not going to use it. We're going to get an error, right? Okay, let's make our own middleware. To make our own middleware, it's simple. Just say app.use, and now you're going to pass something that's going to be the middleware. Before we had the CORS middleware that was already set, right? It was already written by somebody else, and we just downloaded that npm package into our application. Now let's make our own. I'm going to make an anonymous function here. First argument is rec, second argument is res, and the third argument, important, is next. Now put the arrow there, open the braces. So this is an anonymous function, the arrow function. These are the parameters, 3. First being the request, second the response, third the next. This next would be very important. The arrow and the braces and the body of the function. Let's go. So what I'm going to do here is I want to find a way that when we send the response here on line 28 for all the entries, I want to send that response with the HTTP header set that will make the CORS thing work fine. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to set response, right, res, res dot set. This method or function is used to set an HTTP header for the response. First argument is the name of the header. Second argument is the value. Okay, so let me use double quotes here. I'm going to use that header. Let me grab the name again. Access control allow origin. Right, let me copy this. Paste. This is the name of the header. Access dash control dash allow dash origin. And comma, the value would be, what would the value be? Well, we can use star to allow any origin. Or you can use your domain A, whatever, domain B, whatever. I don't know if it's comma separated. It's probably is. I don't know. Would have to reference documentation. Anyway, let's try something really simple. I want to know what the error message says again. Go back to the browser. Let me see if I can restart my server. Back to the browser. You click network tab. What happened here? Oh no, it's hanging on the middleware because I did not do something. That something is calling next. So it's hanging on the request because it's stuck in the middleware and it doesn't know what to do. It's just stuck there. So you have to tell it, okay, I did everything in the middleware that I wanted to do. Now you can go on and go to the endpoint route handlers. And to do that, you call next here. After you do everything you want in the middleware, make sure you always call next so that the handling of this request is passed on to the next thing. In this case, thing could be another middleware, but ultimately it would end up in the route handler, right? The endpoint in this case would be /entries. Will end up here. So let me add that, and I forgot. Restart my server. Now we got a problem because this. Now I want you to note from origin null. Now what would happen if I added null to that value of the header? Let's check it out. So back here, I'm gonna uncomment this, and I'm gonna say null for the access control allow origin. So I'm allowing null, the origin null. So restart the server. Oh, amazing, it worked, right? So let's take a look at the network tab. Click the entries rule. Up under headers, response header now includes the header access control allow origin, whose value is null. Now, because null is the origin here, it worked. Okay, so that's how you handle this problem with a middleware. Now we've seen, in a way, what happens behind the scenes with CORS. Of course, this is a very, very simple part of that, I'm sure. If you want, you could look into the source code for that. Just go to the npm package page and see if you can take a look at that, or it's even here actually. This package is installed under the node modules and CORS, and here's the source code. You can look at, I think it's lib index, and you can see everything. When you call CORS, this is what happens, all this stuff. And of course, our version is a lot more simple than everything that's happening here. But you can see if you look for that allow, I always forget the header name. Allow origin. Let me remove this. You can see here, access control allow origin, headers push, seems like it's setting the header some way. And the value is star. Remember, we saw star before, and that means any origin. right? So it's saying if there is no origin defined in the options, which we did not define because we just passed an empty, passed no argument to the CORS function call, right? Or the options are just star, just push the access control our origin star. That's what we saw before in the network tab when we use the CORS. And that's essentially what it's doing, right? Now all this stuff, all this stuff, all this stuff, all this stuff. And you can see there's rec, res, and next here too. It's a lot more complicated. In any case, if you want to take a look at that just for fun, it's there. Under node modules /core/lib setting /index.js. I'm going to close this and let's go back to what we were doing here. Semicolon just for style. So let's summarize what we did. Let's go over what we did in this lesson. In this lesson, we talked more about CORS, cross-origin, resource sharing. We learned about this HTTP header, access control allow origin, access-control-allow-origin. And this is how we get around that problem where fetch failed. And this is because of security that's built into the browser and how it deals with request and response to another server. It's all about cross-origin, meaning if the client requests something that's on a different origin, right? By default, fetch will not allow that due to its same origin policy. Now to get around that, to fix that problem, right, we have to set the header from the server side. We used a middleware before called CORS, but here we set our own to learn how to make a middleware. Middleware simply you can use app.use, pass it an anonymous function with 3 parameters: rec, res, and next. Very important that after doing what you want to do in the middleware that you call next, otherwise the request will be stuck there and your client will be seeing a pending request that will never get a response. So important to call next, so it will proceed and pass and go on the chain of request response. In this case, if there were other middlewares, those middlewares would be called. Otherwise, ultimately, it always ends up in the route handler here, line 14 in this case. In our middleware, we use res, the response object, .set. This method can be used to set an HTTP header. The first argument being the name of the header, the second the value, and we set it to null. I use null because the way we wrote the app locally and everything, null is the origin when you run the file, the HTML file directly from the file system. Although this is not really recommended, okay? Usually you want to specify exactly which origins you want to allow, or for the purposes of our education and learning, I'm going to use the star to mean any origin is allowed. That means that your client, and in this case, it could be any origin, right? Any cross origin request is fine. Okay. And if you want, you can keep this, or you can go back to using CORS. It's up to you. Maybe I'll keep both or not. Maybe I'll just delete this and just let it use CORS and use the default with the star. Okay. And then I'm gonna go here back in the terminal, restart my server, and see if everything is working fine. Reload the page is fine, entries appeared, and you see the header, response headers allow, control allow, or access control allowed origin with a star, meaning any origin. Great. So for this lesson, that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you on the next one.